All right, let's talk about Prop 33, or the Justice for Renters Act that Mr. Michael Winstein or is pushing. He's the guy in charge of AIDS Health. What was that? AIDS Healthcare Foundation. Now I can do another just a video just about him in general, but uh, in short, this guy is relentless, and people like him are determined to. I mean, California's rental market is already really bad. The rents are already really high. Prices are skyrocketing. Availability is almost zero. And these people are determined to make it worse and worse and worse. I don't know how. It's basically like their philosophy, their strategy. California already soaked up and implemented a lot of their strategies, and everything is really bad. But they're just so determined. Every 2 years, these guys put a more stricter rent control thing up for vote in California. Now, just from the very beginning, the actual bill's name triggers me, as in justice for renters, as in it's so Orwellian, as if like what's that Obamacare? The Patriot Act was not patriotic. It's like everything the government tries to implement is always the opposite. Affordable Care Act did not make healthcare more affordable. Healthcare start went up 10% every year, so it's almost they're like sarcastically naming things, but just think about that. Justice for renters. So there's been an injustice, there's been a horrible crime that they need retribution for. What are they? People have been rent gouged. Well, I can see how price gouging could happen where, let's say, if there's been a hurricane and you need a bottle of water or a gas generator, and there's only one person that comes with a truck and try to sell you something that's 10 times more than they have the bought it for, or whatever. Okay, I can understand. There are certain circumstances where people can get price gouged. But here, we have tens of thousands of landlords. They have mom and pop landlords, they have corporate landlords, and then there's like a giant market, right? And it's not an emergency. So you can choose any of these housing providers, and they all have high prices. Well, you're not being gouged. That is the market price right now, unfortunately. For why, I'll get into in a minute, but as if let's say you want to buy a house, like a beachfront property in Malibu, and you're competing with billionaires, and the house costs 100 million, and you're like, I can't afford this house, but I want to live on a beach property in Malibu. I'm being gouged. I need a law there's justice for beach house buyers. Like, no, it's like, why don't you have? You're just, the problem here is you're competing with billionaires, right? Other rich people want that property, and you just can't afford it. Uh, it why don't they create the same type of act for grocery stores? Or, although that's the funny thing is Kamala Harris is trying to do that, which is so ridiculous. Prices have been going up with inflation a lot, but you could create the same type of thing for groceries or automobiles or anything, as if you can just, the government just make a wave a magic wand and cap prices without any kind of bad side effects. Because the thing about a price is a signal, and the signal it's giving is, if the price is high, that's letting the consumer know that, hey, this is in short supply, this is very scarce, so use it sparingly. On the other hand, yeah, and it gives people who build houses or make things, and a huge incentive, like, hey, there's the high price, build more housing. The market in California is screaming, please, we need more demand. We have so much demand. Please build more. But it's illegal because of zoning and other government restrictions. And people like Mr. Weinstein, anybody that's tries to build, they get sued into oblivion, and then they have to get in crazy legal battles for decades, or they have to buy the land, get into legal battles, and it is so hard to build a unit. And then that's why and then the parking requirements, that adds $100,000 to each unit, crazy things like that. So once they actually do build a unit, it has to be, they can't, the developer, trust me, they would love to build for middle class or entry level. They're like, but the problem is there's a limit to how much they can build. So each unit is so very expensive, and because each unit is so expensive that they have to angle it, put like high end furnishings in it, and try to do like a luxury, try to market to the luxury market, so they can make any kind of money. That's not the ideal, because contrary to popular belief, developers would just make more, like Costco and Walmart, big companies just make more money selling volume. Like, they do not want high prices. They do not want to target the luxury or the rich people, because there's not enough rich people. So let's get into this. There's a law called Costa-Hawkins on the Book of California, and we already do have rent control in all sorts of different parts in California. But they want to remove Costa-Hawkins that limits some of the rent control. And then they have local jurisdictions would be able to impose their own more restrictive rules. Now, Costa-Hawkins says that if there are buildings that are being rent controlled, well, the developer, if they're going to build more units or completely build a new building, they can get rid of those people. And to a lot of people, think that's like a huge strategy, and maybe for the people that do get displaced. But usually, when a developer destroys something, it wants to destroy one unit, 10 more units get created, creating kind of much needed supply, which is interesting because a lot of people only look at one side of the ledger, which is, oh, here's a family, and then you're destroying the fabric of the community, and then that family got displaced. But they don't ever look at the other side of the ledger, which is there are hundreds of thousands of people that want to live all over the country, that want to live in LA or in California. They want to be here they want to be there for the job market, job opportunities, for the weather, for the food, all sorts of things. But they just can't do it because either they can't afford, just like they literally cannot afford. They will not be able to find a job they can afford to live out there as a rental unit, or they're already working a job, and then they can get another job in LA that would pay more, but even though you get paid more, you pay so much in rent, there's going to be a pay cut. So a lot of people don't do it. So you have to look at both sides of the equation. And unfortunately, because of these activists, a lot of neighborhoods in LA are just frozen in amber, just frozen in time. And then they're just old, dilapidated house. Like, those dilapidated houses cost $1 million. And when they were first built in the 1960s, those little stucco, little wooden structures, they were built as entry level for the working, like a blue collar housing. Later on, they got expanded. There's like always things that are attached to them. But originally, they're just blue collar housing for back in the day. So let's say if they would get rid of this Costa-Hawkins, what they really want to do is, well, first of all, it's such a horrible idea, because there is, as bad as the rental market is in California right now, there are some developers that are slowly building, bit by bit. But then they have their building because of certain rules. They know that when they have a new structure, it's not going to be under rent control, and they can get market rent for a certain amount of years. But now, if they were to get rid of that, that would just put everything into question and into jeopardy. Why would anybody build a brand new building and they might even be able to get financing for it? Because developers, they cost so much money, it's not coming out of their pocket. They're they're putting a down payment, but they're getting financing from banks. And on one hand, the rents are so high in California, it's easy to show the bank that, hey man, look at all these rents, look how much we're going to build these units, and look how much we're going to rent for. The bank sees that and they're like, oh, cool, here's the money. But if Costa-Hawkins is repealed, who knows where they're going to cap? Maybe rent control starts after 2 years or 3 years, or every jurisdiction is going to have like a patchwork of their own like weird laws, and either like these banks or the developers are going to be following the local races, and it just seems that it's not the regulatory risk is so high that it seems like it's just too much to bother with. It's too risky because you build brand new building, and they're going to slap a rent control on your new construction, and you're not going to be able to pay the bank back, or you're not going to get the rents or then like you thought you did. So I mean, unfortunately, it seems like they're just doing the opposite. A lot of new construction would just stop. But then here we go. This thing they will want it to, what they always they always wanted to do it, because if you own a not a single family house, but if you own a duplex or anything more in Los Angeles, you do have to register it with the city, or it's under RSO, whatever. You got to pay like $200 per unit a year for this kind of like a rent control board, HUD or something. And they do have this line when you register your unit is how much are you charging for rent for now? How much is your current rent? Which is, it's like, wait, well, why do they need that? But then once you see these proposals, you understand why. They want to know everybody's rent so they can freeze it. So they can have vacancy control. And vacancy control means either when somebody moves out or passes away, usually the landlord can bring the rental, the rents up to market price. But with vacancy control, they might, who knows, where you can raise it like 10% more or 5% or 0% or whatever the government deems, which is, I mean, beyond madness if you think about it. Already rent control is, let me go into how like a natural, a real free market works in rents in most parts of the United States. Landlords rent out a unit, and some landlords they want to get the maximum market rent, and they'll be giving rent increases to their tenants every year, when the lease comes up for renewal. And some of the tenants just get irked by it or don't want to do it or whatever, and they just move out. And at that point, once your unit becomes vacant, you have a vacancy. To fill that unit, you have to paint the walls again, hire cleaners, touch-up paint. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So, the unit might be empty for a month. So you might actually, even if you try to bump up the rent, even if you do get a new tenant that's willing to pay you the new rent, which is a gamble, it might not work out. You lost a month worth of rent and the screening and so a lot of the time, what a lot of the smart old more seasoned landlords, what they do is they want to make sure that the tenant feels like they're getting a good deal that's under market. So if the tenant goes on Zillow or on Facebook Marketplace, they can see that they're renting, they're getting their unit, like they look at the comparables, 2 bedrooms or whatnot, and with the same amenities, and they see that, oh, hey, I'm getting a good deal. Maybe I'm $300 or $400 under, depending on the area, but they're renting under market. Now that's a healthy market because they want to, like, if the tenant's cool and the landlord's cool and you have a great, beautiful business arrangement, it's worth a peace of mind. They have a great tenant. You're not trying to, max out their rent, and then they're grateful and they don't bother the landlord. They can, if a light bulb burns out, they can change the light bulb themselves, no problem. Under rent control, already this situation is ruined. Meaning, every year the government board convenes and they decide how much rent can be raised, and you can't raise rents retroactively. So unless you're okay with your rents falling, not keeping up with the market or just not keeping up with inflation, a lot of landlords are forced, their hands are tied, because somebody can live there for 15, 20, 30 years, so they're forced every year to bump it up 2, 3, or 4 or 5, whatever the legal, like maximum, whatever the legal amount is. So everybody's already in LA getting the maximum rental increases. But could you just, it, which is already super problematic, but at the same time, you can kind of see that, okay, well, a landlord or whatever, the landlord tenant, they like each other, and they can see, you know what, maybe we'll always be, I don't have to raise the rent on him this year. We'll always be, with him, if he's renting from me, we'll always be behind the market, right? As soon as he moves out, I can bring it up to market again, eventually, right? But with this vacancy control, for the life that you own the building, you can never get it back up to market ever again. It's lost forever because the government would just say, okay, this person moves out, you can raise the rent 15% maximum or whatever they deem, which is crazy because that might be so low, way, way lower than the market. So you're just guaranteeing constant and nonstop rental increases for the tenants, which is horrible. Yeah, so in LA Times, there's an opinion article by Weinstein or whatever. They ran his opinion. Basically, he wants rents to be regulated like a utility. And when I read that headline, like my head started spinning because his logic is like, well, we need utilities and the government regulates the prices of utilities and people need a place to live. It's a very important aspect of your life. So the government should regulate rents like utility. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry or it's just so, the logic on it is just so flawed on so many levels, just so childish. For, let's say, if you have, just take the most basic class in economics 101, they will go over, well, there are natural monopolies. Let's say you have a water company, right? And it only makes sense for all the pipes, like the sewers and the water, the plant. It's a natural monopoly. It'd just be too bothersome to have like multiple or 3 or 4 or 5 different companies competing with each other and all digging pipes, putting pipes underneath the ground. So it's just like, okay, well, everybody, the government's going to choose which water company provides the water, but then they're going to audit the balance sheet, and then they're going to come to a consensus about raising the prices or whatever, which is already problematic because a lot of insurance companies, they do that to insurance in California. Well, a lot of insurance companies are pulling out of California because the government's not allowing them to increase their premiums enough. And a lot of them just, they don't want to lose money in California, so their hands are tied. We're pulling out, like State Farm has been doing. So already this is like a not ideal setup, but okay, you can understand a water company that lends more to a natural monopoly because the water companies can just, hey, you're a captive customer, you're not going to pay our price increases. Well, we'll just cut off the water. You're not going to have water, right? Okay, I get that, right? But with rentals, it's not like you have one giant provider that owns all the rental housing. You have thousands upon thousands upon thousands. You have mom and pop landlords. You have big corporate landlords. You have things in the middle. So, and they're not coordinating, right? I have I have a duplex in LA, but most of my rentals are in Ohio, but I have a duplex in LA, and no, I never got a letter saying, hey guys, let's coordinate the rents. The rents are kind of too low, or we should all stick together and make sure. Like, no, it's the rents are what they are. They're, how do people set the rents? Well, they look at comparables. Maybe they set it on the high side, see if they can get it. If they don't, and your unit is vacant, and then you're kind of losing money, and then you're like, whatever, and just you keep lowering the rent until you find a renter, right? So, unfortunately, the high rents in LA are the market price, and they reflect the scarcity of units. So instead of trying to put a band-aid on a cancer, which is not going to do anything. The cancer is still going to fester underneath their skin. The housing crisis should be solved with building more units or getting rid of all these regulations that prevent companies from building a ton of new supply. And then just arguing with people about that on Facebook or just like on any social media, there's been the brainwashing or the misinformation that people have is just so strong, and just it's people are so deluded about it. There's this myth, and I think it's a significant amount of people believe the myth that for some reason, somehow, large corporations or developers, they get tax breaks to keep their units. So, it's like the vacancy myth that all these like luxury buildings are popping up, but these companies don't want to fill them with pesky renters. They're just making all this money from the government or for whatever tax breaks, or I don't know. Nobody could explain it. Nobody can send me a link to show me like what's a credible source for this, but is that they're making a bunch of money on tax breaks. Or somebody even goes to say, like, so ridiculous, I can't believe it, that they're making money on like application fees. Instead of renting out a unit for $3,000 a month, you get like 5 application fees, and you charge them $20, and you're like, haha, I'm not gonna rent to you. I'm gonna keep this unit vacant, but I took your application money. I didn't do anything. I mean, that's even just mind-boggling. But if you just Google the vacancy rate, it's one of the lowest in LA's vacancy rate. It's one of the lowest in the country. There's only 4% of units vacant. 96% are filled. I don't even know why I have to like address such a like silly thing, but so first of all, if you have a building and you're not renting it out and it's vacant, you're already in the red. And a company that's losing money hand over fist, just bleeding out money, they don't need any tax breaks because you're not paying any taxes. It's all straight up red ink. It's all losses. So I don't even know what these people are talking about. But I mean, you build a building like that, you have property taxes, super high property taxes. You just have just the basic wear and just the roof, and you have just maintenance of just water, or just like this building that, as soon as you build a building, it starts disintegrating. So you just have like just basic maintenance so it doesn't fall down. I already mentioned property taxes. You borrowed millions upon millions of dollars from the bank. They need to get like monthly payments, otherwise they're going to repossess the building, foreclose on it. So I've never, that would have been the most ridiculous thing ever. You're going to go to some investors and say, hey, great guys, I have a genius plan. We're going to make a ton of money. They're like, go on. You see, we're going to build a bunch of buildings and we're just going to keep the units vacant. They're like, yo, but we're going to lose money. No, don't worry. There's some magical tax breaks we're going to get. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I don't even know. We'll have to address this stupid stuff. However, there is a truth to some of this vacancy stuff with like empty apartment units, but it's actually caused by rent control, not in the way these like deluded people think it is. I personally know multiple people I've met that live in Florida, live in Ohio, and I talk to them, and sure enough, they have a rent control unit in Los Angeles. So one of the guys I know, his girlfriend, actually, he lives with his girlfriend in a condo in Miami. And maybe 1 month out of the year, he'd fly back when Miami's a little hot. Or I talked to him like, why do you still have the unit? He's like, I have my bike, my bicycle there, and I have my stuff and my records and stuff like that, so, and it's under rent control, so it's like in some hip area like Los Feliz or something. And I pay like $1,000. It's just like throwaway chump change for him. And there's other people that I know. Yeah, if you maybe rented like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, an apartment before the crazy inflation, or rents went even higher. Well, that's an asset, right? Because you're getting it so under market rent and it's so expensive to live there. Like, why would you ever give it up? So in a sense, that is true. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of. They're technically they're rented, but there are a lot of vacant units where there's so many people that would actually need that place to live. And if you could just get rid of that rent control and bring the markets, bring that like a unit's rent instead of $1,000 more, 1,800 or more in line to what it should be. Well, first of all, that's gonna people who don't need to be who are living with their girlfriends in Ohio and LA or whatever, they could just give up. Again, a price. A price signals that this is a scarce commodity. Maybe you have older people living in a really trendy neighborhood where there's like tech companies. Well, I mean that kind of sucks, but they might maybe somebody else needs to live there more, right? They can walk to work or whatnot for the business opportunities. So a higher price. I mean, ironically, just get a rent control will just get a lot of these people who don't actually live there or just have empty units. They'll put more units on the market, and it would probably lower rents a little bit because now they have more supply. So like another thought about the rentals being regulated like a utility by the government. I mean, I'm kind of. It'd be funny. Actually be funny if they actually do it, because I just want to see what actually happens. Because to me, it just sounds so ridiculous. I mean, in a sense, what are they going to do? Are they going to say 2 bedroom units are 1,500, 1 bedroom units are 1,000, and that's the fair price, and that's what we're going to want to do? Or is there going to be any account for maybe this unit is on a hill, like with a beautiful view, or next to a coffee shop, or they're just going to freeze the rents as is, to where okay, that's a fair price. So maybe somebody that bought that building 30 years ago, well, they have a lot of room, they have a lot of margin that they can lower the rents or whatnot. But like, what if you pay a lot? You didn't look for to make like a lot of money. You had money, you wanted to park the money because you were afraid of inflation, so you bought a building, you're just breaking even. So the government's going to come in and say, hey, that's unjust rent. So now you have to like sell the building because you're just like losing money, which is, I mean, what a disaster. And on top of that, what if, I mean, this would just ensure that, I mean, the demand for rentals be so high. If you artificially start compressing the rents, well, the demand for these rentals would be so high, then why would you ever bother remodeling? I mean, yeah, you can get sued by the health department if, you have like rat infestation or the ceiling is leaking. That's true. But there'll never be any kind of like cosmetic upgrades at all. Just be like pure utilitarian. Or unless you have a government department. I mean, utilities do like, let's say they want to upgrade the power station and they provide a justification to the government. And they're like, okay, well, these are appropriate upgrades to the infrastructure. And yes, the government approves a $50 raise to bills or whatever to the kilowatt hour. Well, how funny would that be? You want to upgrade the kitchen, but the government gives you like a budget, like, yeah, kitchens could be upgraded for $6,000. Oh, can I use this $500 faucet? No. The faucet you can use is this kind, or you can't spend X amount of dollars, or so. I mean, I really hope that they have to create some like government aesthetics board to where they have a government inspector that's inspecting like how things look, the tiles and the vanities and everything else. That'd be hilarious. But yeah, no. In all honesty, they're gonna do something very blunt, just completely blunt and even-handed, and just say. I mean, they already kind of do that with Section 8, where they would say Section 8 is like the government paying most of somebody's rent for a low-income person. So, and then their Section 8 prices they're more or less keeping up with the market. Maybe they're like 10% or 15% lower. So, let's say the government imposes this and just drops the price by 10 or 15%. They just force everybody to take a haircut. Well, the disruption to the market and then is going to scare away so many mom and pop investors. The disruption to the market is going to be so great that, oh man, I can't even, people get so scared. And then when there's like a heightened risk, you in business, usually, investors demand more money for the risk, but if they just do a straight up cap on like a 2 bedroom unit, set prices, then and then there's so much demand. Well, the landlord, technically, I mean, the government hasn't completely taken his building, right? You can still rent to whoever you want to. Well, at that point, if you have a unit and you can only charge X amount of dollars under the market rent, and you put that unit online, and you're going to have hundreds and maybe thousands of people applying for it because it's such a scarce supply. You're going to have people from all over the country applying for that unit, not even the people who live in LA. I mean, how just nutty would that be? The Maybe the landlord start renting to his friends, family, if they can't charge her higher rent. Asking for sexual favors. I don't know. This is just you're gonna have this crazy black market. It just ask just why can't we have a healthy market of the landlord asking for whatever the market can bear, right? And then you should go. It's like an auction process. You go to the highest bidder. Yeah, some people don't like the results of that, but that's just long term, most sustainable way possible to manage. A lot of people have this like knee jerk reflex. I've been reading like a little bit of Reddit on it, that just knee jerk thing of like, oh, nah. If landlords are scared about it, if it hurts landlords, well, that's got to be a good thing, which is so shallow, so short sighted. Because yeah, some landlords are afraid of it, but hey, we have rent control now, and there are so many anti-landlord policies in California, in LA right now, that most like 85% of investors would never invest in California to begin with. However, there are some companies here that are expert in LA, and they're making a killing. Basically, all that's going to happen is you're going to have certain people that really understand the system and how to play this game. They're very niche oriented, and they understand that the government is creating artificial scarcity, right? And there's so much demand, and then they just start playing the game properly, and then they're already making a killing. They're already making so much money. Like there's a company called Adaptive Realty. Look them up. They're buying specializing in buying buildings and somehow getting rid of like rent control tenants and completely remodeling them. And the rents they're actually pretty beautiful buildings. They do a good job, but they market them to like techies, and the rents are just astronomical, and they're always full. And so yeah, I don't think, I mean, it's going to hurt some landlords because some landlords are going to be afraid, but in the end, I almost guarantee it. If you don't fix the real issue of like creating new supply, new units, getting rid of single family zoning, and just building more. Yes, you're gonna have some negative byproducts of building more, but that's what the government is there to solve, right? Their main goal is infrastructure, so maybe we'll get some like underground subway tunnels. If they can get rid of those laws, maybe we can get some kind of like Uber taxis that would pick people up, like Uber buses that people pick people up and drop them off to their destination. You can get like rush hour pricing with everybody with technology and smartphones. You can actually charge people to money to use certain roads. So there are ways to mitigate, more density, but that's the real solution. Anything other than that, try to paper over it, try to do some like hack. It's, I mean, I think the free market is undefeated. If you're going to try to screw with the free market, I mean, you're just, like some famous economist said, I think it was Mises or something, that any kind of regulation that's going against the free market, it causes some adverse side effects, and then they got to pass another regulation to deal with that, and then little by little by little, you just have like more and more and more regulation, and just at the end of the day, it's like it's just so bad, it's so messed up that the government just has to completely take over, and you have like more of like a socialist situation. Well, that's what's happening with American healthcare system. It has so many crazy laws on top of laws on top of laws. Now they passed Obamacare, and then at this point, you're making the system so bad, so unworkable that, well, it might as well, because the cheapest thing possible, just the government just take over healthcare. So I think California is going down that route of just like eventually it's going to be so unworkable and untenable that they're going to have to basically just nationalize all, or just take over all the housing in California. All right, take it easy, guys.